Have you ever found yourself drawn into a relationship that felt absolutely perfect in the beginning, only to later learn that you are drawn into an emotionally draining and chaotic relationship? If so, you're not alone. Many compassionate, rational, and stable people attract partners with BPD because of certain traits and characteristics that they have. I'm Lise Leblanc, therapist, author, and life coach, and in this video, I will explain 7 qualities and traits that make you a magnet for someone with BPD. And stick around to the end because I'll be sharing the #1 most powerful thing you can do if you recognize these traits in yourself. The first thing a person with BPD is drawn to is someone who is emotionally tuned in and responsive. The kind of person who truly listens, who is deeply attentive, and seems to care. Now, of course, everyone wants to be seen, heard, and cared for, but for someone with BPD, this sense that you're emotionally available and responsive can feel like instant safety, and they're desperately craving this sense of emotional validation, consistency, and security. So when you respond kindly, compassionately, and attentively to their emotions and their needs with comforting words, reassurances, a caring gesture, or promises to always be there for them, it can create an instant sense of trust and connection. And this can make them feel like they've found their person, that someone that truly gets them and will be there for them no matter what. A second thing that a person with BPD is drawn to is someone who struggles to set and enforce boundaries. Now, you might enjoy the euphoric feeling of love without boundaries. And at first, you might be able to give all of your attention and energy to the relationship. But this is unsustainable. So the person with BPD is seeking someone who will lap up all of the idealization and who will be receptive to being put on a pedestal, someone who won't say no or push back. And this lack of resistance and boundaries might feel like unconditional love to the person with BPD, making them feel safe, secure, fully accepted, and it might mimic the feeling of finally being seen and chosen, like that unconditional love that we all needed from our parents, but that many didn't get. But as time goes on, the partner with BPD expects the same level of attention, reassurance, and intensity. But the reality is that the rest of your life doesn't stop. Work, family, other obligations and responsibilities start needing your attention. And that's when the person with BPD starts feeling abandoned. When you can't give them the constant attention and reassurance that you were giving in the beginning, they start to feel rejected, maybe even betrayed. Unfortunately, the relationship that started out as magic becomes like a crazy roller coaster of emotional highs and crushing lows, where one minute you're their everything and the next they hate you and act like they want nothing to do with you. So when the idealization turns to devaluation, connection turns to disconnection, euphoria turns to intense anxiety or anger, you might find yourself getting emotionally depleted and destabilized as you become more and more focused on soothing your partner's emotional insecurities and dealing with their emotional volatility that's often directed at you. In case you're not super familiar with borderline personality disorder, or BPD for short, here's a quick explanation. BPD is a serious mental health condition that affects how a person experiences emotions, how they think, and how they relate to others. It also affects how they see themselves. People with BPD feel things very, very intensely. Their moods can shift quickly, especially when they feel threatened or emotionally triggered. They experience intense fears of abandonment, which often lead them to constantly seek reassurance and be hypersensitive to any signs of a rejection or abandonment. Because of their emotional sensitivity, they react strongly to situations, sometimes react impulsively or in ways that are self-destructive. But it's important to understand that unlike narcissists or sociopaths, these behaviors are not driven by a desire for control or personal gain. They are rooted in emotional pain, fear, insecurity, and an inability to regulate intense emotions. That said, if someone with BPD also displays narcissistic or antisocial traits, then their behavior can sometimes be a lot more manipulative, harmful, and even calculated. If you're curious about the different types of BPD and what drives their erratic behavior, check out the link at the end of this video. A third trait that someone with BPD looks for in a partner is the willingness to prioritize their emotional needs over everything else. A person with BPD is very high maintenance emotionally because they experience such intense emotions that other people don't understand or experience at that intensity. So their moods shift radically and rapidly, and they often require attention, validation to feel secure and to stabilize. So they're drawn to partners who will drop everything to provide emotional support. Someone who's available and willing to give their undivided attention, especially during these moments of emotional turbulence. Someone who will run to put out fires that the person with BPD often sets as a subconscious attempt to regain their spot at the center of your universe. And they will test you constantly. Anytime they feel your attention slipping, they will feel abandoned, unloved, and that's when a new crisis will erupt. Or maybe they'll go silent and act cold, rejecting and pulling away from you, seeing if you'll chase them. Will you drop everything for them? They're looking for proof that they matter, that they're significant, even if it creates tension and emotional whiplash for both of you. A fourth trait that someone with BPD seeks in a partner is someone who's open to deep and fast emotional connection. So when they feel that spark of emotional safety, it's like a switch flips and they're all in immediately. No time to think, no time to pace the relationship, no time to breathe. And this can feel intoxicating at first. And if you're willing to match their speed and intensity and emotionally fuse with them, it can bring a powerful sense of comfort and security to the person with BPD. Unfortunately, this sense of trust and security won't last because the thing is that this fast bonding skips the slower, more grounded parts of building a relationship, like trust, communication, conflict resolution, and realistic expectations. The fifth trait is caretakers and rescuers. People with BPD often come across as nurturing, affectionate, and incredibly attentive at the beginning of the relationship. And it can feel like they're the ones taking care of you. But very quickly, there's often a role reversal where you become the emotional caretaker and rescuer. What starts as love, connection, and nurturing slowly turns into emotional labor. You're working hard to stabilize their emotions, soothe their fears, help them feel secure, while also taking care of the everyday logistics of life because they're probably struggling with stress and emotional overwhelm. Over time, the relationship starts to feel one-sided. You might feel more like a therapist or a crisis manager than an equal partner. The sixth trait that someone with BPD is seeking in a partner is deep, unwavering loyalty. For them, this is a necessity and it's driven by their fear of abandonment. So they need a partner who will stay committed no matter how bad things get. Someone who won't be scared off by emotional outbursts and who will stick around even when things are explosive. To them, that kind of loyalty feels like safety, like proof that they're lovable. But this loyalty often becomes a double-edged sword where the person with BPD tests your boundaries constantly pushing you to your limits to see if you'll remain loyal no matter what they say or do. And if you are being mistreated or abused and you still remain loyal, it reinforces the belief that love means enduring anything, even abuse. Finally, trait number 7 is a high tolerance for emotional intensity. The most challenging part of BPD is the extreme emotional highs and lows, feeling every emotion on overdrive. One moment, euphoria, feeling on top of the world, and the next, it's overwhelmed and spiraling into dark territory. So they need someone who is emotionally regulated and stable, someone who can ride the emotional roller coaster with them, keeping them tethered in so they don't fly off the rails. But let's be clear, being emotionally supportive doesn't mean accepting abuse, manipulation, or constantly walking on eggshells. Okay, so as promised, here's my number 1 tip to protect yourself if you recognize some of these traits in yourself. Get clear on your boundaries and stick to them right from the start. And this might sound simple in theory, but in reality, it's incredibly difficult when you're in a relationship with someone with BPD who experiences such intense emotional storms. In the moment, it might seem easier to give in, to avoid having to deal with another crisis. Or maybe you feel like it's easier to overextend yourself in an effort to ease their feelings of abandonment. But this might come from a good place, a place of empathy, care, or a desire to avoid escalating the situation. But over time, you'll find that you're constantly appeasing them, walking on eggshells, taking responsibility for their emotions, feeling guilty and obligated, and like a failure because no matter what you do, it's not enough. So if you're someone who finds it hard to say no, to speak up for your needs, to enforce your limits, you might unintentionally become enmeshed in the person with BPD's emotional highs and lows. You might feel responsible for keeping them stable, constantly prioritizing their needs over your own, and you might start to feel resentful and taken advantage of. So instead of bending over backwards to meet their needs and trying to regulate their emotions, try staying steady in your own boundaries. And if it makes you uncomfortable or it makes you feel guilty or like a bad person, then deal with those negative and uncomfortable emotions. And remember that boundaries are not a betrayal. They're a form of love. And in the long run, it's good for them and good for you. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful. If so, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you next week.